Calke Abbey, presented by All My Witchy Ways. When you arrive at Calke Abbey, you have to drive through a small gate and then drive along the vast estate. You can stop there and can have a day just walking on the outskirts of Calke Abbey. There is so much to see there, and on the way in you are greeted by sheep on the left and the right side of you. Sometimes you have to go really slow because they're crossing over the street whilst you're driving, so be very careful when you go in. And as you can see, this place is so big, it amazes me every time I go there. I love Calke Abbey. I go there every year, and I go there a couple of times because every time you go, this place changes and new things are on show to see. Now, as you can see, you drive in and you see the estate. Also, you can see loads of sheep. They are everywhere, and amazing trees which are so big they actually break by a storm and you can crawl into the trees, which is fantastic if you have kids and you just want to go for a stroll. Now, Calke Abbey was handed over to the National Trust in 1985 by Henry Harper Crewe. He was the last owner of Calke and he inherited the estate in 1981. It was a time of high capital taxation and he faced a large tax debt, which at the height of the crisis attracted interest charges of about £1,300 a day. Henry worked to save Calke for the nation and then decided in 1985 to hand it over to the National Trust. Everything you see there looks like it was left since 1886, completely untouched. And when you go there, it's a complete step back in time. And this is what I love about this place. You go and everything looks untouched. Nothing has been modernized, nothing has been changed. It's just a fantastic place. But you need a whole day to explore it. Calke was never actually an abbey, but a religious priory in the 12th century, which was dissolved by Henry VIII in 1538. It passed after this through several hands until Henry Harper bought it in 1622, and it stayed in the Harper family ever since. As soon as you come in, you have some wonderful rooms for the kids to play in. They can try on costumes, they can touch everything, and it's just fantastic for the little ones. Then you come into the stable area and it's wonderful. You just look into rooms which have been locked up for hundreds of years and it feels like it was yesterday, and that's how they were left and that's how they were found, and nothing has changed since. And it's amazing, everywhere you look you find something new and interesting. In some of the little rooms there's a little sparrow who comes there every year and has his nest. The whole house is a treasury of national history. It is full of taxidermy objects, various things collected from travels, especially their travels to Egypt, gemstones, shells, and all sorts of other curious, interesting things to look at. Every time I go, I find other things to look at, different things on display. It's never the same, so it's worthwhile doing loads of different trips a year, and sometimes you even hear someone playing the piano. I'm always fascinated of going round and seeing the wonderful things they brought back from their travels, especially when you see things like human bones. It is kind of strange, but on the other hand it's very fascinating too, and seeing all these thousands and thousands of gemstones. And then when you talk to the people who work there, they told me that when they opened it up, they took out about 60,000 boxes of treasury, which are still, hidden somewhere. And now and then they open a couple of boxes and go through and try to put some of the things they found in the boxes on display. What a great job that must be to do that. I think it's amazing. It always fascinates me. Also, I'm so amazed about how much they have actually collected. And if you hear the story that in the 1960s, Hilda Harper Grew had sold half of her father's history collection to pay off a large debt they had, I think it's quite amazing that they still have over 60,000 boxes full of stuff stored away. Fascinating. Calke also had no electricity until it was first installed in 1962, as well as telephones. Also in that time, in 1960, Hilda first lifted a ban on the cars which were not allowed until this time onto the estate. So from then on you were able to drive onto the estate. Before that time you weren't allowed to. Calke also has a vast array of cellars underneath, beer cellars, wine cellars, anything you could imagine or you would want. Fascinating as well was that all the servants who had to come to Calke Abbey weren't allowed to walk towards the estate or over the estate. They had to get to the estate via a very, very long and narrow tunnel, and that just by candlelight. I'm also most impressed about Calke's gardens. They are so big and fascinating. There's a wonderful field of flowers and just grass where kids can play and run around. They put tents up. They have all sorts of things for kids to explore and play in this garden. It's absolutely beautiful, and if you just look at the flowers and you can see the pictures I took, they probably don't do it good, but it's just fascinating. The gardens again are like little rooms. You walk from one room into another and every room is fascinating. On the outskirts of the gardens they have large walls, and inbuilt into those walls are again little outhouses where they could heat the garden from, and cellars where they could store all the stuff they had grown in the garden, so all the produce. The vegetable garden and herb garden is very large at Calke. Also, they've got a lovely tunnel of sweet peas, which look absolutely fascinating, and it was always my bestest, most wonderfulest smell when I was a child, to go along and smell sweet peas. And I was always fascinated about all the different colours sweet peas can have. And in that garden you find a tunnel of it, and it's just wonderful. At the end of the vegetable garden you find an orchard. And in summer I love to go there and just try it all out. You can just pick an apple from a tree, or some plums or cherries, anything which takes your fancy. And if you look at the vegetable garden,